Good evening. I'm Melissa Ridgen with your APTN News Weekend. An old-growth forest on Vancouver Island is being occupied in an effort to prevent a logging company from cutting it down. The group says it is the last intact watershed of the San Juan River system and as such shouldn't be logged. APTN's Lee Wilson explains.
A grassroots collection of 30 people from across Vancouver Island have set up a blockade at Fairy Creek watershed near Port Renfrew, BC. In July, Teal Jones, the largest privately owned timber harvesting company in the province, started construction on a road in the area to begin logging. An independent study released in the spring shows less than 3% of original ancient coastal rainforest remains due to logging in BC. For nearly 4 decades, Saul Obress has been fighting to preserve forests around the world. He said immediate action was needed for the Fairy Creek watershed.
6% roughly of the best bottomland ancient trees are protected. The rest has either all been logged or is about to be logged. And at this point in time, there is the intention by the logging companies to essentially eradicate the remaining old-growth forest.
Another action the protesters are calling for is for the province to release their old-growth strategic review. That independent review was delivered to the government back in the spring. BC Forest Minister Doug Donaldson emailed a statement to APTN News that they plan to release the report in late summer or early fall. The release of the report will lay out the plan for the future, but the implementation of the report will require government-to-government engagement with First Nations and include discussions for the environmental community, workers, industry, and communities. By working together, we can and will find a better path forward to better manage our old-growth forests. The group reached out to Pacheedaht First Nation, but are not sure where the local First Nation stands regarding the Fairy Creek watershed protection. The forest defenders say their next action will depend on what they see in the government's old growth report. They believe there is an economic impact that will go along with an environmental one. Towns like Port Renfrew benefit from tourism due to the protection of these ancient forests.
The standing forest, in terms of its tourism potential, is enormous and ties in with these other protected areas that surround us, the small areas that surround Port Renfrew, where people can visit these forests, and they want to visit, and they want to come from all over the world.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Kitimat.
An overwhelming number of non-Indigenous Quebecers say they believe systemic racism is a legitimate problem in that province. That's according to a new survey that's being looked at by the Assembly of First Nations in Quebec, Labrador, as they work towards their own action plan to combat the problem. Here's Lindsay Richardson with more.
Fed up with Quebec stalling on issues of systemic racism, Indigenous leaders say they're now taking the reins.
The Assembly of First Nations, Quebec and Labrador is developing its own plan of action to fight racism and discrimination experienced by First Nations.
Picard says Quebec's announced anti-racism task force lacks credibility. Premier François Legault promised an action plan by 2021, but with a handful of reports already on the shelf, Picard says the AFNQL can have their own plan ready by the end of September.
Rather than butting our head on the wall of governments that maybe are not as interested as we are, or not as interested as the people who elect them, we're going to call on the people themselves of Quebec to I guess, tag along and support our work.
A recent study commissioned by the AFNQL, conducted among non-Indigenous Quebecers, revealed that 9 out of 10 people feel Quebec has an important role to play in fostering a relationship with First Nations. 92% of respondents acknowledge that First Nations and Inuit face racism. Over 80% believe the Premier should be doing more.
I disagree with the definition of a systemic racism.
Legault has debated whether systemic racism exists at all. A majority of those who responded to the AFNQL survey say it does.
The public opinion is more aware of our situation and realities and the kind of challenges that we have and obstacles that we have when dealing with governments. They have a better understanding.
The study results paint a compelling picture of Quebec in 2020. Half the people polled admit they have little to no knowledge of First Nations issues, but perceive the relationship with government to be bad. The specific issues they're most aware of: academic failure, dropouts, and a high rate of suicide. Montreal residents reported especially negative perceptions of police treatment towards the urban Indigenous population. A majority of survey respondents feel Quebec can start addressing systemic racism by making at least one change to how First Nations issues are taught in school.
They have a place in developing, means to combat racism and discrimination. So I think it's everyone's responsibility at the end of the day.
Quebec has yet to respond to the AFNQL's plan. Motivated by survey results, Picard says they're moving forward, regardless of the province's support. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
An Alberta woman is upset that her older Indian status card was not accepted when she tried to get a driver's license, so she marched to the registry office with supporters to find out why. APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
On July 31st, Anita Large went to the St. Paul Registry, having recently moved back to Alberta from British Columbia. She needed an Alberta driver's license. Large had an older status card. She was told only the newer secure status cards are acceptable. But Large was able to get the license from another registry in a nearby town, using the same card. She believed the St. Paul Registry not accepting her card was racist. In early August, Large organized a walk from her home of Saddle Lake Cree Nation to the registry in St. Paul, about 30 kilometers away. She wanted to invite the registry owner and staff to her home of Saddle Lake to see life in her community.
I invite you to join in this healing, you both, and your staff. I invite your sons and staff, so feelings of uneasiness and tensions that are starting to rise against St. Paul registries be moved forward in a better way for all of us.
Daryl Poirier is the owner of the registry. He told Large there was no discrimination. He is Métis, and the woman who served her speaks Cree. The problem, he said, was that Alberta law does not allow registries to use less secure Indian status cards for drivers who are moving from another province.
We have to follow the Alberta government rules until notified, and that's what we do. There's no ill intent.
Service Canada recommends all people upgrade to the Secure Indian Status Card, but they do allow older cards to be used. But they also state in their best practices that only new cards should be used for people moving between provinces. The Alberta Transportation Minister's office told APTN they are following those federal government best practices. Large says she wants all status cards to be accepted for any transaction because many members still only have the older cards.
We don't expire as Indians, nor does the number that are on any of the different Indian status cards that are federally issued.
Poirier and his son told those gathered that they will help try to get the older status cards allowed by the Alberta government for all services.
And we'd be willing to help you talk to the province. That way we can make sure that those cards are available.
It'd make it so much easier for us.
And make it easier for everybody.
Poirier says they have accepted the invitation to visit the reservation. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, St. Paul, Alberta.
We always want to hear what you think about the stories we bring you. Here's how you can continue the conversation. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptn news. You can also follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more Indigenous news. A Mi'kmaq First Nation wants the Nova Scotia government to stop a highway project until treaty rights and title of the Mi'kmaq are discussed, and they're using a recent court win to make their case. The Shebaganagadee First Nation says an environmental assessment does not fulfill the legal duty to consult as laid out by the recent Alton Gas Court case. They say the Windsor Causeway project on the Avon River will impact the environment and that blockages of fish passage have already led to fish kills, risking food sources within the Bay of Fundy. Community members have set up a camp to monitor the fish. Construction began to twin the highway in central Nova Scotia last May. The family of Chantal Moore is getting help from a well-known New Brunswick lawyer. TJ Burke has filed 2 complaints with the New Brunswick Police Commission, one against the Edmonton police officer who fatally shot Chantal Moore, and the other against an inspector who allegedly made light of it afterwards. The 26-year-old mother from Clayoquot First Nation was fatally shot during a wellness check last June. Hours later, Inspector Steve Robinson sparked outrage when he was asked by CTV how many times Moore was shot. He appeared to chuckle. A week later, Rodney Levi from Metamagani First Nation was fatally shot by New Brunswick RCMP, also during a wellness check. We've got to take a short break, but when we come back, I'll tell you about a Cree family who've spent this entire pandemic isolating out on the land. Stay with us. Welcome back. Two organizations in Manitoba are getting a funding boost from both the provincial and federal governments to help build affordable housing in Winnipeg. The investments are part of a national initiative to reduce homelessness and improve the affordability, availability, and the quality of housing for Canadians in need. Brittany Hobson introduces us to one of those families.
It may be a cloudy day, but the sun is shining for Dawn Marie Kerr. The Cree woman is preparing to own her first home. It's a new beginning in more ways than one. The single mother is also building her home with help from Habitat for Humanity Manitoba.
It's amazing, that I'm a part of not only changing my life, but my children's and their children's to come, and being a part of building other people's homes to change their families for years to come.
Kerr is a volunteer with the nonprofit organization. She joined as a way to give back to her community, but didn't expect that same community would give back to her.
The staff at Habitat said, have you ever thought of owning a home? And I was like, no, not at this point in my life. I didn't think it was something that I could achieve.
The move is made possible with funding from the province and Canada. Both governments announced they're investing $3.6 million to develop affordable housing options as part of the federal government's national housing strategy. Habitat for Humanity Manitoba was one of the groups to receive funding, which will go toward their home building program.
Homeownership is the foundation to financial security for most families in society. To be able to extend this opportunity to low-income working families is a measure of the depth of understanding of our political leadership has of the immensely positive impact on communities that broadening homeownership conveys.
The organization will construct up to 60 new affordable homes. Wabung Abanujiak was the second group to receive funding. The Indigenous organization is a domestic violence prevention center for children and their families. The funding will go towards transitional housing for vulnerable families.
Together, we can not only envision but actively work towards a place and a time where children and their families can live free of violence and unrestrained by the impacts of violence.
The project will provide housing for up to 24 families. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
It's been nearly 5 months and counting that a Cree family has been isolating on the land during the COVID-19 pandemic. And as Jamie Pashagumskum reports, they're willing to stay out there as long as it takes.
Today is day 132, and back in March, Louis-René Canadiwat and his family came to the James Bay coast. They're from Chisasibi, Quebec, but made the decision in March to travel to their camp to isolate to keep their 5 kids safe from the current pandemic.
He has a lot of respiratory problems whenever he gets sick. So usually he's prone to getting pneumonia and those type of things.
Canadiwat is talking about his second youngest, Samuel. He was born with trisomy 18, a rare genetic disorder, and is particularly at risk from the effects of COVID-19.
With COVID-19, we hear it causes a lot of problems when it comes to respiratory systems. So for us, we felt that if Samuel were to get this virus, it'd be very, very detrimental to him. It'd be a struggle for him to get through it. So for us, we felt it would be safe to just completely isolate away from the virus.
The camp is not accessible by road and is approximately 67 kilometers from Chisasibi. Originally, the family was going to go for the spring goose hunt and then return when school restarted, but that never happened. So, preparing for a long-term stay, they had their canoe brought in, and Grandpa Louis Canadiwat has been resupplying them by boat, but for the most part, they have been harvesting off the land. Mom, Marlene Chicapio, says the family is glad to have the time together.
We prefer staying here because we're closer as a family here instead of Chesapeake, where people are in their rooms, people are in different areas of the house. But here it's just one cabin, and that's it. We get to enjoy each other's more, I find.
Amber is the family's eldest child. She says she likes the fishing and boat rides. But her favorite part about being at camp?
Sleeping.
And what is the first thing she is going to do whenever they do get back to the community?
Eat pizza.
Caledonia says living on the land for so long has been a fabulous experience. It's something they have always wanted to do, and they will live off the land for as long as it takes, with everyone doing their part.
Oh my goodness!
Samuel got a fish.
Yay!
Jamie Pashagum-Scum, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Love that story. If you know somebody living on the land, isolating, you hit us up on our social media. We'd love to hear about their experience doing that. Time for us to take another break, but when we come back, a totem is raised in a BC city for the first time in 3 decades. We were there. Stay with us. A new partnership between a Winnipeg school division and a fabrication lab will teach Indigenous students the necessary skills to be an entrepreneur. And as Daryl Stranger tells us, this program is not just classroom learning, but also hands-on working.
8 Indigenous grade 12 students from Seven Oaks School Division will participate in a new entrepreneur program with the North Forge Technology Exchange. A grant from the Centre for Aboriginal Human Resource Development allows the students to be paid as part of this program, and the new Indigenous Mentorship Program is based off the Met Innovation Centre for Entrepreneurship, which was designed for students interested in creating startups.
Growing off of, I guess, the success that the students had with that program, the superintendent of Seven Oaks School Division, Matt Henderson, contacted North Forge to help out with this program during the summer with the Indigenous student mentorship program. He knew that North Forge could help out in terms of learning opportunities for the students and showing them how to use some of the equipment.
The fabrication lab produces anything from coasters and wall art to microchips and computer parts. The students will learn how to take a business idea from infancy and bring it to market in a classroom setting from Scott Angus, who taught as part of the Met Innovation Centre for Entrepreneurship. They will also learn to use machines like 3D printers and laser cutting, which can help bring a physical prototype to life.
And in this specific part here at North Forge, we do a lot of training, whether it be related to equipment skills, but also skills related to entrepreneurship. So innovation, problem solving, idea brainstorming, things focused around potentially building a business, but more so bigger than that, just getting something off the ground and building something that they're interested in, passionate about.
For students in the program, learning hands-on skills like laser cutting is valuable, but meeting new people and seeing options other than going straight to university is refreshing for them.
I like doing all the presentations that we get and learning more about the entrepreneurs that come in. They give me ideas, and they make me want to become an entrepreneur myself because it seems like it's fun. It made me look that there's a lot of options in the world on what to do. And there's not just university and college. You can start your own business.
I want to go to school for contracting and things like that, and it's definitely now, because I never knew about this place until we came here, and I was just like, what is North Forge? And we finally got to learn about it. I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. I was like, I get to literally come here and suggest an idea, and they'll make it happen. So.
Vice President of North Forge, Marnie Stapley, says it's all about the students and making sure they walk away with something of value from the program.
It's not about us, it really is all about the students, and we're just super excited to help teach have the students learn new skills and just see the growth in what they're learning throughout the summer.
The program runs until the end of August, and students will design a logo and make shirts to commemorate their experience. And it will continue next summer with a fresh group of students. Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Haida carver Lyle Campbell had a pole-raising ceremony in Prince Rupert, BC to honor his mother. It was the first totem pole raised in the city in 30 years, thanks to the help of coastal carvers and support from the community. APTN's Lee Wilson was there.
Matriarchs and women of the territory blessed the totem pole to start the raising ceremony in Prince Rupert. It is a memorial pole by Haida carver Lyle Campbell to honor his late mother, Alice Campbell.
I'm just happy that it's done and that it's standing proper, and that we honored the Creator, we honored our ancestors, and we honored my mother today.
The carvers perform a ceremonial dance around the pole. Carvers from the Nisga'a, Tsimshian, as well as Haida Nation lent a hand for Campbell to complete the project, working through the pandemic. It will be the first totem pole raised in the city in 30 years. Campbell shared the story of an elderly woman who came to visit as they worked.
She walked around the pole one day while I was carving, went all the way around and then came all the way back, and she was smiling at us, and she pat me on the hands and she said, in my life this is the first time I've ever seen this. And that really hit home. Like it made me realize that, you know, this is greatly important to people.
The raising of the totem pole received support in many forms. The blessing of the Tsimshian people of Prince Rupert, it is their traditional territory. A moving company that donated their time to take the log from Haida Gwaii to Prince Rupert. The carving was funded by donations of money and food, which people would drop off as the carvers worked. Even the trucking company, who raised the pole yesterday, donated their time. An eagle is placed at the top of the totem pole, the crest or clan of Alice Campbell. Lyle Campbell is grateful for the community helping to complete the project.
When you have something of such importance, I mean, lifting up my mom and honoring her this way was really honoring all women across our country, and kind of bringing attention to that fact that we need to honor our women.
With the memorial pole standing in front of his mother's house, a dream she shared with her son is now a reality. The Haida carver, along with Tsimshian carver Eric Ray, plan to meet with the city of Prince Rupert to build on this success. They will propose a deal to complete a series of totem poles that will be raised annually.
I'm going to propose an idea for 10 poles for 10 years for Prince Rupert. I want 9 out of the 10, the first 9 to be the Tsimshian poles, representing 9 allied tribes. And just wanting to build on the momentum that we started here.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Prince Rupert.
Beautiful piece, and what a lovely tribute to his mom. Well, that's all the news that I have for you for this Saturday. You can always find more if you've missed anything during the week. Make sure to get our APTN News app on your smartphone. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining us, and have a great rest of the weekend.